Daniel Kaluuya in this movie plays a 21-year-old, and I just found out that Lakeith Stanfield's character was 17 at the time. 21. I'm 21. And without the beard, I look like I'm 12. That's crazy. Hey guys, how's it going, and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a review for Judas and the Black Messiah, which is a new film that dropped on HBO Max and in some theaters, I guess, this past weekend. So we're going to be doing a review on that. But before we get started, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Hey guys, voiceover Raheem here. I feel like I want to give you guys a quick spoiler warning for this review, because even though this film is based on true events, and I feel like a lot of people might know what the true events are and how it all unfolds, I did not know the true events when I watched this movie, so I kind of learned everything as the movie was happening. And in this review, I do talk about some specific plot details or true events in great detail, because just to help my point. So yeah, slight spoiler warning for this review. So the general premise of the film is that it's a dramatization of true events. Everything in this movie actually happened, or, dramatized for the sake of entertainment. This film follows Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Black Panther chapter in Illinois / the Chicago area. And it follows him in his ways of trying to rally people up together and get people to make social changes around the area. And it also follows Lakeith Stanfield's character by the name of William O'Neill, or Bill O'Neill. And he was a 17-year-old kid who stole a car, got arrested for it, and got arrested for impersonating a police officer. And he was facing a lot of time in jail. But the FBI, and the FBI agent's name was Roy Mitchell, played by Jesse Plemons. He thought that, okay, so I can use this guy to be my FBI informant. So he was like, okay, let's make a deal. And they made a deal that was going to send William O'Neill to that Black Panther party to befriend Fred Hampton and get as much information on Fred Hampton that he can, so the FBI can find ways to take Fred Hampton down. I think it's important for me to say that I walked into this movie blind. I had no idea exactly what this movie was about. I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, this looks really good. And I sat down to watch the movie. Lakeith Stanfield's in it. I'm a big fan of Lakeith Stanfield. Daniel Kaluuya is really good. So I decided, okay, let me check this out. Now, I do not know the history. I don't know the true events of this story. I don't know much about the Black Panther Party. I didn't know anything about Fred Hampton. I learned everything about Fred Hampton from this movie. This is the first time I'm hearing about Fred Hampton. Now, here's a little bit of, I guess, about me. I didn't grow up in America, so some American history just flies over my head. I did get most of my education here, but in history classes, it always seemed like when we were talking about this time period, it was always about Martin Luther King and a few other leaders, and a little bit of Malcolm X, and maybe a little bit of the Black Panther Party, but I've been so away from high school for so long now that I don't really remember it. But I feel like we never learned about the Black Panther Party, so I didn't know much about them. But what I heard, or maybe I've seen online about them, or what people told me, was mostly negative. There's a negative stigma around the group, mainly because people labeled them as, taking things a little too far. They're an extreme group. In this movie, the FBI labels them as being terrorists. So I guess in the back of my head, when thinking about the Black Panther Party, those are the kind of thoughts I had about them, just because that's what people told me, and I never really took the time to, I guess, educate myself on it. But yeah, basically, I walked into this movie blind, and part of me is really happy that I did, because I feel like I learned a lot in this movie, not only about Fred Hampton, but also the Black Panther Party. This movie gives us like an inside look, or a peek behind the curtain of it all, right? But what I appreciate about this movie is that, again, it taught me a lot. It showed us a whole different side to them. It showed that the Black Panther Party helped the community in so many different ways. It fed thousands of kids around the Chicago, Illinois area. It did so much good for the community. And in terms of the gun thing, the way I'm processing it is that, like, if you've been oppressed for years and years, and the police are just abusing you and abusing their power, and they're the ones with guns, the only way you feel like you can protect yourself or fight back for equality is if you have guns of your own, right? Because if the police are attacking you and they're killing you with guns and all their power, again, the only way you feel like you could be safe or protect yourself is by arming yourself. So in that sense, I can definitely see why this group felt like they needed to arm themselves. But besides the whole gun thing and everything, what I really appreciate again is that it taught me that, hey, no, the Black Panther Party, even though some people say some negative things about them, no, they did a lot of good things for the community, and those are some of my favorite scenes in the movie, when they give something to the community, and then when they need help themselves, the community repays back. So again, I would almost label it as like a peek behind the curtain, a look on the inside, right? A lot of this movie spends time with Lakeith Stanfield's character, William O'Neill, and he doesn't know much about the Black Panther Party when he first joins them. So when he's learning things about them, we're learning things about them as well. And we're spending a lot of time within the group and seeing how they're planning things out, how they're planning to help the community, how they're planning their next step. And so a lot of it is inside the group, and we're like there at the meetings, and we're learning about how they operate and what their philosophies are and just what they want to do. Hands down, the best thing about this film are the performances. Daniel Kaluuya's performance as Fred Hampton, I absolutely loved it. Now again, there are people who have studied Fred Hampton and they know a lot about him, so maybe somebody will come out and say that Daniel Kaluuya did not do a good job at it. But me, who never even knew about Fred Hampton until I watched this movie, I thought he was fantastic as Fred Hampton. What Daniel Kaluuya brought to the performance was presence. Because Fred Hampton is a leader, he had to get up on stage a lot, give a lot of powerful speeches. There are scenes where he's like, nah, I don't need a microphone. He has a very loud voice. He gets people going, gets people together, rallies people up to fight for the movement. And the opening scene where we're introduced to him, he's about to talk at a school, I believe at a college. And right out the gate in the beginning of the movie, I looked at him and I thought, okay, yeah, no. I see how he's rallying people up together and how his speeches are extremely motivating and get people going, because I was getting hyped myself listening to a lot of the speeches. I was like, okay, yeah, let's go do this. Why not? There's a scene where Fred Hampton takes a few of his members, including William O'Neill, and they go to this Confederate party. Basically, it's all just white people, and they're worshiping the Confederate flag or something. I'm sorry, I just forgot what they're called. And I thought it was about to be a bloodbath. I thought, oh no, there's about to be an argument and a shootout, like it's going down. I was preparing myself that, oh no, bad things are about to go. But no, Fred Hampton flipped it on its head, and he actually convinced everybody in that meeting to join the Black Panther Party in their fight against inequality and try to make social changes around the area. And I thought, wow, this guy just walked into basically a Confederate meeting and swayed everybody to his side. Wow. Then they went to the Puerto Ricans and swayed them to join the fight as well. And that just shows the power and magnitude of words and how well Fred Hampton utilized them. You know, again, the group has guns and everything, but what Fred Hampton used is not guns majority of this movie. He used words to get people together. And I absolutely loved that. Going back to the whole inside look, a peek behind the curtain, the second thing that I really liked about his character is that he forms a relationship with a young woman by the name of Deborah Johnson. I'm sorry if I'm looking over here. I have a cast list. I don't know a lot of casts here, so I want to get the names right. Played by Dominic Fishback. She plays Deborah Johnson. And at first, she was a young student at this college that he talked at in the beginning. And she was all for the movement, she was really inspired by him, and, then they form a relationship. And this is why I really appreciate the peek behind the curtain that I keep referencing. The film shows Fred Hampton in like a more natural state of like just him hanging out with friends, him hanging out with his girlfriend, them forming a relationship. At first, when I saw their relationship, I was like, okay, like, is this relationship going to work for me? Like, how many times are you going to cut back to it? I'm more interested in William O'Neill trying to get into this group and seeing how he forms a relationship with Fred Hampton. But later in the movie, I realized that they were using this relationship to show great character development, not only in Fred Hampton, but also in Deborah Johnson. Because again, like, Fred Hampton is up there on stage all the time giving the speeches. Like, for example, you watch those speeches of Martin Luther King, right? And you've seen the videos, and you can get a sense of what kind of man he was. But have you ever thought about, like, What was he like when he like went home to like his wife and his kids? What kind of dad was he? What kind of son was he, right? Just outside of his element of always being up there on stage. I mean, you can say it about anybody, right? You look at a president and you're like, what kind of father are you when you hang out with like your family? Or an athlete, you just think about what kind of friend are you when you hang out with your friends. So yeah, with Fred Hampton, what I really enjoyed about the relationship aspect is that it was showing us a vulnerable side of Fred Hampton. You know, he's up on stage, he's being very active and being very brave, but when he's with Deborah Johnson, he's very, you know, in love with it all and a very nice guy, and it feels like you want to sit down and talk to him and be friends with him. In this movie, Fred Hampton does end up going to jail for a little bit, and then he's released from jail and he finds out that Deborah Johnson's pregnant. And then after jail, he goes right back to his ways of rallying people up, and he goes to this very big speech, and he's talking, and he's saying how he's willing to die for the cause. He will do anything for it. And this is why I realized that they were utilizing the relationship for great character development. Because in that scene alone, I love how that scene was filmed, because he's up on stage talking about how he's willing to die for the cause, to die for the people. But then it cuts to Deborah Johnson, and she's looking at him, and she has had character development of her own. She's no longer the young girl that was like super inspired by, I mean, she's super inspired and she still is all for the cause, but she's now looking at him like him saying that he's willing to die for the cause after he got her pregnant, and now they're both waiting for a child. I love that now she's thinking, okay, you gotta tone it down a little bit here. How are you gonna say you're willing to go die for the cause when we're expecting a child? It shows great character development in her. It shows great character development in him. And yeah, the way this story is told is just brilliant. But let's talk about Lakeith Stanfield and his character, because I think he was the most interesting character for me. Okay, so the introduction to his character basically tells us all we need to know about William O'Neill. And the introduction to his character is he walks into a bar, impersonates an FBI agent, harasses a few black teens to steal their car. He was kind of an outsider, or he felt like an outsider, because again, he walked into a bar, started harassing young black teens, impersonating an FBI agent, and they're looking at him, they're thinking, yo, you're just like us. Like, what are you doing right now? Why are you doing this? And you learn that he's doing this basically for his own selfish reasons. He wants the car, he's gonna go steal the car. Doesn't matter who he's gonna steal it from. And he gets caught by the FBI, and he says this thing that basically sums up his whole character. He says that a lot of people had Martin Luther King, Malcolm X as their role models growing up. Mine was an FBI agent by the name of Roy Mitchell. So he really looked up to this FBI agent because he really thought that, you know, he could make a career out of this or something. And he was really enjoying the FBI informant job that he had, you know, spying on the Black Panther Party. And it really felt like he had no sway in each side, I guess. Like Roy Mitchell asks him, you know, how did you feel when Martin Luther King died? How did you feel when Malcolm X died? And he's just kind of like, I guess, like, it was like nothing to me. Like, I'm just doing my own thing, kind of. And yeah, he has his own selfish reasons, and Lakeith Stanfield does such a great job at playing this cowardly person and the selfish person who basically is just doing it for himself, right? Again, he has no claim in anything. He doesn't care about what the Black Panther Party is fighting for. He doesn't care what the FBI wants. He just wants to get paid, right? It felt like his character, William O'Neill, was the outsider. Like, he was the one that didn't care. He was selling out his own people, and there was something like really disgusting about that, but also so interesting about that this actually happened, that this guy just like didn't care and didn't have a say in anything. And they do call, you know, these people rats a lot of times in this movie, and a lot of characters are really disgusted with people who do this. I've noticed also great character development from him, you know. At first, when he meets Roy Mitchell, because Roy Mitchell is the one that catches him, he's like all beat up, he's a little shriveled, he's sitting in the seat right now, and, you know, he's like, okay, you want to make a deal? And then he makes the deal. And throughout the movie, he ends up meeting this FBI agent, Mitchell, at a restaurant to discuss what they have, to discuss what information he has gathered. And I've noticed that in this movie, Lakeith Stanfield ends up entering the restaurant in all kinds of different ways with more swagger and more confidence about him. Like, he's enjoying this thing that he's doing. And I don't know, the idea of him selling out his own people, like, really stuck with me at the end of the movie, because I was thinking, like, this is based on a true story. what is the real William O'Neill doing right now? You know, how was he received in the community? You know, because I can't imagine that after everybody found out that he was the FBI informant that basically got Fred Hampton killed, you know, I can't imagine he was greeted with positivity around the community. I was just thinking, like, what kind of life is he living right now? And I'm telling you, this movie left me shocked at the end of it. One of the things that left me shocked is that there's text at the end of this movie. These historical films usually do that to catch people up of where the real life people are. And it showed that William O'Neill, the real life William O'Neill, did a PBS interview, I believe in 1989, talking about all of this. And the day it aired, he ended up committing suicide. And wow, that shocked me, because again, I was thinking, like, what kind of life is this guy living? You know, how is he treated by society? And I guess him committing suicide showed that this was all just too much for him. And yeah, Lakeith Stanfield does such a great job as this character again. And towards the end of the movie, when the FBI starts asking him to do some extreme things to get Fred Hampton killed, you can see that he's kind of regretting it. He's like, okay, this is a little bit too far. Like, I'll give you information on him, but now you're asking me to kill the guy. And you can see that it's starting to really weigh on him. And the whole concept of, you know, selling out his own people is really starting to weigh on him. And it looks like in real life it took a toll. In terms of the FBI, Jesse Plemons, who is the detective Roy Mitchell that works with William O'Neill, does a great job in the film, and Martin Sheen plays the director of FBI. I guess he's like the bad guy of the film, the one that initiates the whole Fred Hampton assassination. They did a great job. Like, I was supposed to hate them, and I did hate them. And in terms of the real life events of it all, like I said, the end of the movie just had me shocked. My head was in my hands. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The movie ends with the FBI raid at Fred Hampton's home, and them ending up killing Fred Hampton. And wow, yeah, no, I just couldn't believe the corruption and what the FBI felt like they needed to do, even though this guy was already going to jail, and they basically achieved their goal in a more peaceful way. No, they felt like they needed to take this guy's life. And again, I was shocked at the end of the film. The film left me shocked with that, and the text about what actually happened to William O'Neill in real life. Yeah, I was shocked at the end of the film. The film is also beautifully directed by a director by the name of Shaka King. This is my first introduction to any of his work, and I'm looking forward to see what he does in the future, because I thought the cinematography and the direction in general was just beautiful in this film. I loved the way he directed it. There was a lot of great camera movements, a lot of great shots in this film, and, you know, to tell a visual story as well. And combined with a great script, this film is only 2 hours and 6 minutes, and it tells a story that spans over, I guess, a few months, or maybe even a year or two. There's no real indication of where it goes. But Fred Hampton does spend a few months in jail in this film, so it tells a great story over a great period of time in a very fast-paced way, always intense, always interesting. This film is full of great performances led by Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya, who I think will get an Oscar nomination at least for this film. It's beautifully directed, combined with a great script that's extremely fast-paced and always intense, and the story is just so riveting. And yeah, I am a big fan of Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm going to give it an A+. If you have an HBO Max subscription, check it out, because again, I didn't know much about this story, didn't know much about the Black Panther Party, didn't know anything about Fred Hampton, but I feel like I learned a lot from this movie. And yeah, I can definitely see this movie being nominated for a lot of Oscars, maybe even a Best Picture. Don't know how the Oscars work nowadays with streaming and everything. Don't even know when they're happening. Don't know what this movie is qualified for. But yeah, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check out Judas and the Black Messiah on HBO Max, and I'll see you guys in the next video.